Hey, welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm really excited for my guest today, Robert Kalil. Robert is the host of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. He's a truth seeker and likes to talk about all areas of esoteric knowledge and the paranormal. He has a variety of guests on his show, and the topics range from the Anunnaki to the paranormal, the afterlife, UFOs, near death experiences, out of body experiences, remote viewing, psi, and much more. You can find his shows on multiple platforms, including YouTube and Rumble. I just want to let you guys know I started a Patreon channel a couple days ago, and I really appreciate your support. If anyone can help me out, it's going to allow me to keep doing my shows. I can't do it alone, guys, so I really need your support. I've also got a PayPal link up there for donations. Anything helps, trust me. I really appreciate it. And I want to welcome Robert to the show. How's it going, Robert?
Hey, Dave. Nice. I'm glad we're doing another show. I think this is the third show we've done. I think you were on my show, and then I did a show with you and Karen, and now we're doing your show. This is awesome. I always love our conversations. They're always like thought expanding,
Oh, absolutely, man. You're one of the few people who I feel quite comfortable. We can pretty much go into anything, and you're gonna have a response. That's a big thing for me.
I'll try my best. I just want to let your audience know I had dental work done today. I had 4 cavities filled on the bottom. I don't even know where they come from because I don't even eat bad food, But I mean, I'm just saying, just to kind of break the ice. If I'm talking weird, it's because I had dental work done. Just full disclosure. But onward.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, I wanted to kind of kick it off. I want to ask you about psi. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, psi, psychic ability, psi, yeah.
Okay, so it's a general umbrella term, or what's going on with that?
I think psi is more like the psi. If you want, I don't want to say a scientific term, but it's a term that I use. It's a term that a lot of people use for psychic abilities. To a broad generalization of psi abilities, and under psi, you could say that psychokinesis, telekinesis, ESP, clairvoyance, intuition, even all the areas of psi are under there. And then I would even go as far as to say that remote viewing is definitely in there, but even some things maybe I don't know if out of body experiences and near death experiences would be considered in that but it's still dealing with the mind, But I know Robert Monroe was real good at mixing that together. He was I really looked up to Robert Monroe. I have his book Journeys Out of the Body, and he was a true pioneer in out of body research. I've been able to interview a couple people from the Monroe Institute, and they mix all those areas together, like psi and out of body experiences and remote viewing. I love that. I love talking about this stuff. I really do.
Is that that's that place in Virginia? Is that correct?
Yeah, but I was able to interview Paul Elder too. He was the head of the Robert Monroe Institute in Saskatchewan. They had one in Saskatchewan too, which is pretty interesting. I wish I could go. And what was interesting is I used to go down to Virginia. I used to go on surf trips, and I probably passed it before, but back then I wasn't into this stuff. Now I'm into it. But I've never had an out of body experience. I want to have one. I got close to I felt like I popped out of body once. What I was doing was, I think I said this on my show, I was using the Robert Monroe's Hemisync binaural beats. They're supposed to, it's they call it Hemisync because one tone, you probably know this, but one tone's going in one ear and one tone's going in another ear. And it does something to the brain hemispheres where it makes it more enabled to have an out of body experience. I felt like I popped out of body once, and then I'm not sure if I really did, because then what happened was something weird followed up. I was in a meditative state, and I was laying there meditating, and I was using the Hemisync binaural beats. I felt like I was about to go out of body. You get these weird sensations when it's about to happen. You kind of get a whooshing in your head. It sounds like an ocean. I don't know if that's because you're transferring from different realities. You also, your body will start vibrating almost violently. It's almost it's very weird. But what happened was I started to go out of body, and I saw 2 shadow people. And I know that sounds weird. I don't want you to think I'm crazy, but I really did, And I was I thought in my mind, I was are they going to try to body snatch me? or, like if I would go out of body. So I backed out of it. And then I haven't done it ever since. Like I've talked to people on my show about what I should do, or, different techniques, but, people said that those shadow people are just kind of observers, that like, they're not really harmful. I don't know though,
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, I mean, the minute someone tries to, put like one tag on something, the next day you find out that, wait a minute, I got another piece of data here that's suggesting that someone did it without that. So we got one person doing it that way, one person doing it without that way. And so I try to say that, I try to leave the possibilities open as much as possible, Robert, because I know for myself, what I experience, but you can't really ever know for other people. And sometimes you can't even know for yourself, you do your best.
Yeah. It's like sometimes like I have these paranormal experiences, or I'll have something that will be close to a paranormal experience, and I don't want to tell anybody because I'm afraid someone's going to think I'm crazy. Like, here's an example. I was with my ex, I would say this was about 4 months ago, and we were just laying here, and in the middle of the night, like something started touching me, and I swear to God, I'm not lying, or this is all like real, and I thought it was her, but then like I realized very quickly that it wasn't her. And then before that, what had started it was I was doing a podcast with a psychic, and she noticed something behind me. We didn't catch it on film, of course. Like it seems like we can never catch these things on film, but I guess you could say it was because we were using Zoom and it was back and forth or whatever. But so that's when I first noticed it, that there was like some kind of spirit in there. And then I started getting touched in the middle of the night. Then so my ex did some weird, she was like into psychic stuff. She did some like smudging and like with sage, and then I have this like angel protection bag or whatever. It stopped, but I mean it got to a point where I was waking up with like bruises on my leg. Like something was like actually like starting to harm me. I don't know what you would call it. I don't know if there's just like I'm really interested in that world, like spirits and demons and whatever those things are. I'm really interested in the afterlife too, like what happens to us when we pass on. That's one of the reasons why I started my show, was to like find out like what happens to us when we die,
Oh, definitely. Well, I think go ahead, Robert. Go ahead.
I was going to say, is it on your mind too?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love all these topics. And the more firsthand experience I have, obviously, the more comfortable I feel addressing whatever it is. But I'm also, talking to people all the time. I'm reading firsthand accounts and testaments. I'm watching shows and documentaries, and I literally never stop. Every day, I research every single day of the year. And so the thing about it for me is that when I think about kind of what happens after you die, I think of the body as it's an energetic field. That before you come into matter, physical matter, you have an etheric body, or an energy body, or whatever you want to call it. It's composed of of your aura, and essentially it's like a torus field, which is the same model that I use when I talk about cosmology and also the human body. And so it doesn't that field of energy does not have to be inside of a physical vessel. And that's how you explain. It depends on which energy frequency it is. It's like what you're broadcasting, if you will. It's like kind of like a radio station. So if you're broadcasting it, if you're let me put it this way: if you're cohesively broadcasting, and like your whole body is tuned properly and you're balanced a certain frequency, then you're going to appear in that bandwidth of light. And the inside of the very center of the EMF spectrum, if you guys remember that from school, like secondary school, electromagnetic spectrum, is a very, very small sliver of visible light. I mean, it's absolutely tiny when you look at that compared to how
we
much
only see like 5.5% or something, right? Is of the electromagnetic light spectrum.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You'll see it's a very small sliver if you guys pull that up, if you haven't seen it already. But the thing for me is that all of your angels and demons and spirits and ghosts and all this stuff, it's fairly simple to me, Robert. All you got to do is figure, well, hey, their body is composed of a different kind of light. So when I'm looking, I can't see them. I can't see them in the 7 colors, which is, we're very limited to what we can see. Some of us, I think, have slightly higher abilities. Some people can see a little into infrared or a little into UV. depending on how much energy they have moving through their body. But by and large, we're right stuck in the middle in that small spectrum of visible light. So all I think is, okay, you've got you feel like something's in the room. You feel really good and really happy. Okay, that has more energy than your body has. It's more energy, and it's a positive, higher energy. You might think it would be in like the UV spectrum, maybe in the X-ray or gamma spectrum. Certainly for angels, I tend to think like it would be like a gamma. Well, you call it radiation, but it's just light, just very powerful light. And in my opinion, the reason it harms our body is because we're made of a much less, it's less strong and less cohesive gradient of light, which would be visible light. Of course, we're made of all the different wavelengths of light, but I'm saying when we manifest primarily in the visible spectrum, that's why you can physically see our bodies and everything. So, and then if you go on the other side, if you're going down to, for instance, the radio waves, then you end up, or microwaves, of course, and infrared. I'm going to say you end up with lower energy beings. Whether they're ghosts who are confused, or you got demons down there. It can be really anything. And the thing about it for me is that you can feel the energy, but you can't see it. And what I say is the reason you can't see it is because it's very simple for me. It's not in the visible spectrum. That's all it is. They still have a cohesive body, and you've seen, I'm sure, the paranormal shows where they got that stick figure on screen.
Yeah.
It basically showing.
Camera.
What's it called, Robert?
It's the SLS camera, I think.
Okay, SLS. And so the thing about that is that it will show you the figure that you can't see. And it's really, really interesting to watch this. And like, I was very skeptical at first about technology, but it feels intelligent. It feels like it's moving organically, that it's not something that's been technologically created or whatever. I encourage people to go check that out. But yeah, it's fairly simple for me. And I think in terms of what happens when you die, I think largely it's a balance of karma. I do believe in karma. And just because you want to get out of the system, or say you want to get off Earth and get to what you would consider a better planet or a better place, it doesn't necessarily mean you have free access to do that. You have to square off with the universe. So if you've done things, hurt other people, especially in innocent people, without any due reason, like just because you say, "Oh, I've had enough," well, you know what? You're not the highest intelligence in the universe. And I tend to think about a council of elders kind of looking down on us and saying, yeah, we're trying to help you guys, but if you act like this, you're not getting past the gate. You're not getting into the higher realms because you don't deserve it. And it's not a judgment, Robert. It's just that's the fact. And if go ahead.
Do you think we're in like a prison planet type system, or do you think it's more benevolent?
Well, I often refer to Earth as purgatory myself. Now, it is, according to the ancient cosmology, it is at the center, and I do teach flat Earth. I've got a show on that on my channel. I encourage people to be open-minded. Go check it out. Probably the most clear, to the point, no nonsense presentation you're ever going to see on that topic. I'm not trying to sensationalize it like a lot of people do. I'm just saying, why do intelligent people have so much interest in this topic? Because people are like, man, people say this to people all the time. They're like, man, I thought you were smarter than that. Why are you spending your time with that? Okay, well, coming from an intelligent person, let me show you guys why people are spending time with that. And I have a full presentation on that topic. But anyway, the word Earth itself has the same letters as the word heart, the exact same letters as the word heart. And the heart, we know, is at the center. And it's actually at the center of all of the ancient teachings. It all starts really and ends with the heart. And in fact, if your heart's not functioning, you can't even use your brain. And there's your evidence right there, because you need blood in the brain. So if it's not pumping, then nothing works. So the heart is the beginning and it's the end of all spiritual traditions. And the heart being in the center, to me, it's essentially, it's in the center of a toroidal field. It's how energy moves in a torus shape. If you have seen it before, it's generated at the center, which would be the heart. The heart is the Earth, generated at the center of that field. It arcs up to the top, and when it hits the top, it actually falls back down to the bottom. And then when it hits the bottom, it comes back up to the center, and it's a constant rotating torus field. I like to think of kind of fusion when I think of that. It's how I visualize fusion working. you're creating limitless energy, in an enclosed system. So because of that, and the way I teach it, Robert, if you haven't seen any of the videos I've done on cosmology, is that above the center, and again, the earth in the center, well, purgatory, you're halfway, between the heaven and hell. That's kind of the idea of purgatory. And when I look around me, that's what it actually feels like. I see I see about half and half. When I think about what I see in the news headlines and how I interact with people, it's pretty damn close down the center, in terms of the positive and the negative stuff. It's not, it's not all bad. Of course it's not. But when you see the bad headlines, you start to say, wow, it feels like everything's bad. I don't think it is. I think it's about half and half. So when you go above that, I teach you got the 10 spheres above that, which are the 10 heavenly spheres. And when you go below the flat earth plane, then you've got the 10 hells, which are the 10 lower spheres, 10 lower realms. And the way I visualize it and the way I think and conceptualize it is that you have beings. They may not have physical forms, or if they do have physical forms, and you're going up from the earth, I guarantee you they're going to be upgraded physical forms, much more like delicate tissues, more intelligence, more beauty, all lighter weight, all this stuff. And it's vice versa when you go down below the earth. You get more density, less freedom, less movement, less beauty, all this kind of stuff. So the thing about this is that when you look at the cosmology, and it's not just one, it's not two, it's not three, it's not even like five. It's like pretty much all of the ancient cosmologies are showing a flat disk at the center with the cosmic axis going straight through the center, and then you've got the domes. And the domes, when the domes connect from the top to the bottom, you actually end up making a sphere. And that sphere, in my opinion, is what people are seeing when they're claiming Earth is a globe. It's the Earth at the center of the globe, plus you've got the energy field around that flat disk at the center, which makes a sphere. And then when you look through that energy field, it's going to change the light. It's going to refract the light and make it look like the Earth is, like a globe. So for me, it's I'm very satisfied with that explanation. It's fairly simple for me. There's a lot of other things you can look into, but anyway, all along the cosmic axis of the solar system, it's like the superhighway of the solar system. So all the spirits, and it says it in the Bible many times. Jacob saw angels ascending and descending on the staircase. That's the staircase. It's called the cosmic tree. It's called Yggdrasil in the Norse mythology. It's called Mount Meru in the east. And so it's, the black black magnetic pillar at the center of the earth plane. And so the reason it's so important is because that's how spirits move up and down, and going to higher realms and lower realms. So basically you've got this massive system. It's when you add it up, turns out to be a 21 dimension system, including the earth at the center, where you have spirits populating each of these levels. And the ones, like I was saying, the ones that are higher than the plane and at the center of the earth are the heavenly realms, and the ones below that are the hellish realms. And so it helps to understand, and I'm assuming different wavelengths of light and all this stuff. You can explain it with physics. Sometimes it drives me crazy because the scientists come in and say, "Oh, what are you guys talking about?" All right, man. Well, tell me how a torus field works, and then let's talk about the ancient cosmology. And you see, it's like the natural shape that energy is going to make when it's produced at a core. It's going to make the globe shape, and it's going to be a constant loop that reinforces itself.
Well, I got a question. Well, what do you think about the theories of an ice wall, and what do you think? Do you think there's a key to flat Earth in Antarctica? Do you think there's something there? Do you think there's an ice wall, and and then here's an even better question, that I've never thought about this. If there is an ice wall, is there something on the other side of the ice wall? I've heard a lot of flat earthers say that they think that there's the ice wall, then outside of that's like other realms or other worlds. And I think Flat Earth Dave came on my show and he said that he thinks that's where the UFOs are coming from. They're coming from outside the ice wall. I don't know. Do you agree with that, or what do you think?
Well, it's interesting because the very term extraterrestrial means, it could actually even mean extra land.
Yeah.
Or outside of the earth, or extra somewhere outside of the earth realm. But when you're talking about extra land, and you're assuming that there's more land on the earth plane, then that term, it would fit for something being outside of the ice wall. And of course, if you some of the depictions of Atlantis actually show Atlantis being the Earth, like the entire Earth, but not just the center portion of the circle that we can see. It would be the center. Then there's an ice wall, and then there's another larger ring with a bunch of other continents and land. And then outside of that's another ice ring with at least one more set of continents outside of that, with oceans and stuff like this. So let me put it this way: if I was designing the solar system, that's probably what I would have done. Actually, that's probably the way to do it, because then you set up a field, and there actually may in fact be like a force field. I know Santos, Santos Bonacci, of course, and him and Dave Weiss have worked together quite a lot. Well, Santos is my friend. I learned astrology from him in 2015, the basics of astrology. And also Flat Earth. The first time I heard that concept, he did a phenomenal job on that. So I want to give credit to Santos for sure. And Dave does a great job too. I mean, it's just nice to see people really kind of getting the main points and trying to bring it clearly across so people can really make their own decisions. Because I'm not about ever, oh, this is what it is. I'm like, guys, this is what I think it is based on, the 50 things I just laid out on the table. But I want you to determine what you think it is. It's not about, my opinion is not about your opinion unless you actually believe that. We got to let people make their choices. So anyway, the very model of Atlantis, if Atlantis is the entire Earth, is suggesting actually that fact. What you just said is that you do have several rings inside of rings, and they each feature different land, and they're separated by ice. Or, I think Santos has suggested it's actually the dome. The edge of the dome is actually at the ice wall, so you can't actually get through it. It would be like, you run and you hit a wall, but the wall's like transparent, and you can't. To me, that's like a force field. That's essentially what a force field feels like to me. So yeah. I think that I think the extraterrestrials also live below the flat Earth plane in the 10 dimensions, hellish dimensions that I talked about, and a lot of those are going to look probably more like demons. Some of the scarier insectoid alien stuff like that, I would probably expect to maybe be beneath the Earth. And we know that there's a lot of talk about ET civilizations being below ground. I'm not going to go into that today, but it's all over the place. People are and under the water too, and lakes and oceans and stuff like this. But I think they're kind of like everywhere. And in terms of the flat Earth model, though, it's we just need to calm down and just be chill about it. It's like I'm not trying to. It drives me crazy because when I bring up topics, I'm not trying to stir controversy. I'm just trying to say, okay, why are people talking about it? That's it. And let's see what you guys determine what you think. I wish we could all calm down a little bit and just be more civil with each other.
Yeah, I was thinking this. I was thinking if we live in like a simulation, if we live in like a holographic reality, could the world be what you perceive it to be? Or do you think it's
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I think the world can always be what you perceive it to be, whether or not it's a simulation, just according to quantum physics, laws of quantum physics. And I actually just uploaded something a couple weeks ago on my on the educational playlist on my YouTube channel. And it's one of the most important things I've ever found in my life. It's only like a 12-minute video, but it talks about how the inside of your brain is like a projector. And it's projecting your version of reality onto the ether outside of your body, which is why it's always said, you have to start within. It's that the perception starts within, and that you're creating your reality and all this stuff, which is actually true in my opinion. So I think what is going on is that like there's a general backdrop, but we all have our own projectors inside of our head. And so what we see, you may be something. I've seen this many times happen to me throughout my life. I may be somewhere with someone, and I'm like, "Oh man, did you just see that?" They're like, "What are you talking about? Nothing happened. There's nothing in the sky." Or I'll take a picture out, and I'll say, "Do you see these spirits that are in the tree right here? You can see the shape. Here's the head, and here's the body, and all this stuff." They're like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about, Dave." And then it was probably like 5 years ago, I finally realized I don't know if they're even seeing what I'm seeing. It might not even show up for them. So that's a totally valid point, Robert. And I always leave that open. I was just talking about astrology on a podcast the other day, and someone was saying, well, what if astrology is only real if you believe it's real? And I said, you know what, man, that's actually can potentially be a valid point because it's consistent with quantum theory. So it can be all of this stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
I like what you said about that our brain's a projector. If you read the Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, and I don't want to butcher this, but I'll say it the best way I can. He says something like Gerald Clark talked about this. That's how I found out about this. I haven't even. I still have to read Michael Talbot's book, The Holographic Universe. But Gerald basically said that we have like rods and cones in our eyes, but it's something more than that. There's something in our eyes that show that, like, when, like, see, for example, I look at my computer screen, there's something in my eyes that's telling me that computer screen is real, but it's not real. It's made up of like particles, and it's a holographic projection. But it seems like it would be real because it's solid to me. So that's where I'm confused on that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, something doesn't seem right there. Like, because everything seems biological and real and solid. So, but I do believe that we could be in somewhat of a simulation. So I guess I'm like 50-50 on that, if that makes any sense.
Well, I'll give you a really good example. This is one of the more exciting things that's happened in my life. And it was through a combination mostly of fasting, but also I know physiology very well. You know, I know the body chemistry and acid and basic and how to change things and shift things and keep things steady and all this stuff. I've been doing this for 15 years, you know.
Yeah.
And so the thing about it is that, and it's one of the reasons why especially the East talks so much about fasting. It talks about cleaning your fluids of your body. The more refined your fluids get, the clearer consciousness you have, the more God consciousness that's available to you, and all these ideas. Well, this one time, I had been having very little food, and but I wasn't weak. That's an important thing. It's not that I was hallucinating. I was actually just really placid, you know, really calm, just going through the day. And I put some, I think it was actually like skim milk. And skim milk has a lot of salts in it. And it has a lot of, like, you know, essential proteins, and it gets into the blood really easily. And it's got, well, it doesn't have the essential, the fat, obviously. I had a lot of fat previous to that. So I had enough fat in my body. So whatever that did is it actually sparked some kind of reaction in the body. And I'm like, wow, I have to lay down. I feel like really weird. Not bad, but I felt like I felt there was a magnetic shift kind of around in my body, aura around the body field, energy field. So I laid down, and I was sleeping actually on the ground at the time, just taking a nap. I just literally, it was like a carpet. I laid down on the carpet, and I looked over. I had this, it's the strangest thing, man. I had this bottle of laundry detergent on the windowsill. Okay, and the windowsill was like level with, really close to the carpet. It's a very low window. So I kind of like, I mean, I was feeling really, really woozy, put it that way. Totally sober, you know, I had nothing like that. There's nothing going on with that stuff. I looked over, and the bottle, you know, like a lot of these bottles have pretty colorful label. You know, it's
Yeah.
like they try to make it nice, you know, so you buy it and stuff like this. All right. So I looked over at the label, and the colors actually started to disintegrate. They started to spiral.
Wow.
They were moving like this in a vortex, and it looked like a kaleidoscope, and they started to swirl, and the bottle disappeared, and then suddenly, I was in a vacuum. I was literally, there was nothing below me. It was not, the floor was not there anymore, man. There's nothing below, above, or to the sides, and it was completely black. And and I was fully conscious, man, fully conscious. I actually went through it was a tube shaped wormhole. I cannot make this up, man. You know, I'm not a liar. I am absolutely not that kind of person, I am a scientist, you know, and an astrologer. I'm just telling people what happened. So I'm still in the same position. I'm flat. I'm laying horizontal, and I start to see this tube or like a wormhole for around me. It was probably, oh, I don't know, it wasn't that big. It was probably 10 feet from the top of it to the bottom of it. And I was still laying in the same position as when I was on the floor. And I started to hear a really loud mechanical sound. And I heard like sparks and stuff. It sounded like a machine, like a very powerful generator that was starting up. And I started to fly through this wormhole, and I could see the edges of it the whole time. I was confined within this, you know, it's kind of a cylindrical shape. And I came out in a place that was probably about 120 miles away from where I was. And I know that because I know the area 120 miles away. It was a big city. And I'm in the city, and I'm up in the air, about 40 feet in the air. And I'm looking around, and I'm seeing at the same time of day. This was happening in real time. This was not like an alternate reality. This was a current reality. And I was, you call it your astral body. That would be a fair, or etheric body, a fair way to describe this. And I look down, and I could see everything, all the details, the sun shining off of the cars and off of the glass in the buildings. I saw people walking their dogs. I saw the sidewalks. I mean, everything was perfectly detailed, and I did not create that. It's not something that there's no way I created that. I wasn't thinking about anything like that, at all. And then what happened, this is what's very interesting about this. It's why I talk so much about energy. What happened was I felt a drop in energy in my body. And then what happened was that I returned back to my room. So I felt I was conscious of a fall of energy, and that what was allowing that to happen was a very high spark of energy. And it ended up creating a vortex and then a worm, dimensional portal, basically. And then when the energy dropped, the experience stopped, and I was back in my room. And I woke up and I said, I figured something out here. It was a chemical reaction, Robert. This is something that happened with proper biochemistry. So these things are available to us, and instead of like trying to I wish I could figure that out, I'm going to suggest people spend a lot more time on physiology. Really start to study your body chemistry.
I want to know that. I want to learn how to fast like the right way. Like I've been doing it lately. I think I've been doing it on and off for like 2 weeks. Like I'll be honest, the most I go is about 24 hours, but in that time I still have coffee creamer. It's like it's a little bit, it's like cane sugar. I'm getting a little bit of sugar because like I drink coffee throughout the day, and I know that's probably kind of breaking the fast, but I have no food at all. And I'm trying to get it to where I do it the right way, because I start to feel worn down. I start to feel like grumpy. Like I need to learn how to do it with vitamins and maybe some MCT oil or like some right fat. I mean, I do have coconut oil. I do use that. But I didn't know if that was healthy, to use, or I just need to know like how do you do it? Like what's the best way to do it?
Well, it's a very complex system, and I think a lot of the reason that it fails for a lot of people is because they don't. It's all the same principle to me, is that you don't have the proper circulation in your fluids of your body. So if you go 24 hours, and what happens a lot of times when you eat is it kind of sparks your metabolism. Well, of course it sparks metabolism, but it also allows your fluids to move again, because you have some material that you can combust through fission, which means breaking apart the food and everything, and it creates energy. And then the fluid that's not otherwise, I think a lot of the reason we feel weak is because the fluid kind of stops moving. You have all the nutrients and minerals that are trying to get through the body, but if you're not powering it with anything, if you're not eating food, then it kind of unless you have a really clean body, really clean, it will generally it will very much slow down, if not almost stop moving. It's not going to stop. I mean, if it stops, you obviously have death, but it's going to really slow down. That's why people feel weak. But there's blocks in the body. There's blocks with tissues, soft tissues of the body. You have calcification that happens, especially all the stuff as you age. You've got coagulation of fluids, the fluid themselves, because you have to talk about really all of the body, but you're talking about the body tissues first. The diameter of your blood vessels and everything will greatly diminish, and they will also become brittle. And so then even if you have clean fluid, it's still hard to move it through a constricted channel. This is essentially, it's like plumbing. If a plumber is going to understand what I'm talking about, and I've actually talked to a plumber before on a show, and she said, yeah, it's the same. That's the dynamic you're talking about. And then what happens is, now if the fluid is coagulated, then the fluid is thick and it can't move. And then if you've got other stuff suspended in your fluid, like toxins, and you've got things like heavy metals in there, and microplastics, and coagulants, and all this stuff, whatever they put in our food, that they say that it's safe for us to eat, which obviously is not. It's making everyone sick. there's a lot of things, man. But what I would say is pick up. You can find it for free online. Actually, it's called the Sushruta Samhita. It's the primary text of Ayurvedic medicine. And I can type it out for you later, Robert, if you want to see how to spell that.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Please, yeah, please share that with me. That sounds so interesting. Like,
that's the power text of true medicine for the world. That's the finest text that I've found that actually talks about what real medicine is, and it's all about your fluids, man. You have to get your fluids to integrate and disintegrate freely in your body. And when you have a full fluid channel, then you actually have ascension. That's actually the key to getting you to ascension.
but how do you get these fluids to move? What's the best way to do it? What would you say?
Well, any kind of well, I mean, I was saying any kind of activity, but any kind of physical exertion to a certain extent. You don't want to be hurting yourself. You don't want to be pushing yourself too far. You don't want to be, lifting heavy weights if your body can't handle it, or if your bone structure can't handle it, all this kind of stuff. But you have to get the fluids to get refined, and that happens by essentially not eating. But at the same time, you have to make sure this is where the roadblock is for most people, is that you start to get weak, after like say 24 hours, and you think something's wrong, and then you start eating again. And actually, there's the thing, man. Something may be wrong. That's why it can be fairly dangerous. You got to be very careful, because if you're starting to get weak, it's because you can't move your fluids through your body, and then you don't have anything to power your body reactions. There's all kinds of things that could happen, bad things that could happen. So really what you have to do is you also want to get, and actually the first person I think that I ever heard state this was a man named Genesis Sunfire. I don't know if you've heard of him before.
No.
Okay, way back in the day, he said that he was a breatharian, that he didn't eat food and everything like that. And the guy was used to be I think a professional rugby player over in England, if I'm not mistaken. He did all kinds of fitness very often, and he was talking about being able to get moisture from the air, which is true. You do get water when you breathe. You don't have to necessarily drink it. I mean, most people are going to have to, because we don't have our channels cleaned enough. But the idea is, he's got some stuff on YouTube if you want to check it out, Robert, and anyone else. He's also goes by Jericho Sunfire. I think he goes by both names. I don't know if he does it anymore, but the thing is that he was doing, and again, I'm not saying, pound your body into the ground, not at all. And you're going to want to talk to your doctor and stuff. I'm just trying to give people ideas of how systems work, according to scientific principles. But he would be out there, man, doing squats and stuff, and doing push-ups and sit-ups, fairly low impact on your muscles, things that are probably not going to hurt the average person. Just getting the muscles to engage, getting the blood to be pressed through the muscles. It also will squeeze out the toxins and stuff like that. So what I found is a combination of fasting properly. I don't drink too much water. You don't want too much, otherwise you're going to have just rot and decay, especially if you drink a certain amount of water, you need to be removing the same amount of water every day. And if you're not, then you're going to have decay in the body, and that's not going to be helpful. It's going to be counter to what you're trying to do. You have to get the fluids to move. If your fluids are moving, and he was saying himself, he's like, yeah, you actually be surprised at how little water you actually do need. And again, I'm not suggesting you don't drink water. I'm just saying it's not as much as people think. I drink, Poland Springs, because you're up in the Northeast, obviously.
Yeah.
The standard size Poland Spring bottle of spring water, the small, the one like this, about this. I drink one of those a day. That's it for water. But there's lots of things to know. The other part about it is that you have to kind of address the Kundalini power. That's the whole key to being able to harness power properly in your body. And the thing about that is that it is directly connected to the sexual life force, which sits in the lower chakras. Usually the second chakra, between the first and second chakra down there. That's where the snake is coiled up, waiting to have enough room to move up the spine. So the thing about that is that you have to deal with that fluid. And this is something that almost no one talks about. Santos has mentioned a few times. Ayurvedic texts do talk about it. Actually, some of the Chinese texts also talk about it. Is that the most important part of this is it's a bottom-up healing approach. You got to get the sexual fluid to be refined. You have to clean that fluid. The reason I believe men get prostate cancer is because the fluid can't move out of the prostate and some of the other accessory organs in that region, and it starts to coagulate. And then when it coagulates enough, it'll solidify. And when it solidifies, you're screwed, man. You're actually in real trouble. There's almost no way you're going to get out of that, not the average person. So you have to get that fluid to be refined. And so, I say reasonable. And again, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm saying that fluid has to move. So if you're fasting and you feel like you hit this block and you got low energy, well, see what happens if you discharge some sexual fluid and see if that feels like it resets your body, because that fluid tends to be very dense as we age, and it sits low in the body because it's heavy. It's working with either gravity or density, so it'll fall down to the bottom. So that needs to be addressed. I would say honestly first, and there's lots of safe ways to do that. Obviously, if you're going to do it with another human being, please practice safe activities, and be responsible. If it's going to be with yourself, then that's a little bit easier to control that, but that fluid, man, it needs to not be ignored. It's very serious when it comes to ascension and cleaning your body.
How do we, this is all fascinating stuff. This is like, have you had, would you say you've had what you would call a Kundalini experience?
Oh, absolutely. I've had, it's interesting, man, because it's not like a one size fits all. There's lots of ways to experience that. And some of them are not good, and that's what you read the warnings, like, do not waken the serpent if you're not ready. And it's essentially fusion power. This is like the power of the sun that you're unleashing in your body. And that's the power of ascension, really, and proper healing, reverse aging, time dilation, all this stuff, everything opens up to you. And so, again, if your channels are not clean, and you try to turn on that power, it's going to fry your body. It's the same thing if you have an electrical circuit that's set up and you haven't grounded it properly and you're not allowing it to run freely, or if you've got stuff that can be catch on fire. You need to make sure the system is established correctly. So when people try to say force Kundalini, or you're doing, well, breathwork's not bad, actually. Breathwork is fairly, in my opinion, fairly benign. You got to be careful with everything. The world's a dangerous place, guys. I can't say one thing is always going to be safe. You always have to know what you're working with. And the thing about it is that some people do yoga, some people do stretching or chanting. There's all kinds of ways to try to drive that the energy up. You need to you want to get focused, kind of center in the mind, get centered without any of the stray thoughts. That's essential. But it's just, to me, is that we're really missing the point. And I'm not saying, I think yoga is great. It's wonderful, stretching, exercise, calisthenics, all this stuff. But you have to get your fluids refined. So the number one thing is you need to keep your fluids moving, and you need to get into fasting, and you need to be safe. You need to be safe.
You know what, Dave? One thing I used to do that I feel bad that I'm not doing it anymore as much, is I was an avid runner. I was running 4 or 5 miles a day every day. I'm not kidding. It was every day. And then since I've been going hard on my podcast, and I'm always doing interviews, and then I'm working too, on top of that, and I'm working a rough schedule. I don't even have the time to run anymore. But I bet you that was what kept me, because I'm 43 years old right now. And I know I don't look 43 years old. And I think a lot of that was from running. I really think running keeps you youthful. And I think that's from what you said, because it moves the fluids, because your blood's pumping, right? Would that be, is that an easy, is that right or no?
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, actually. And I can even remember, I did a little bit of running in high school. It was never really my thing. I knew a lot of people fairly close to me that loved it. And I had a lot of respect for them. It's not easy to get out there, run 5 miles every day, or even every other day. I was always good with about a mile. I'm like, all right, I'm good. And then I'd walk another 2 miles, but I wouldn't run for more than about a mile. And the thing about it, and of course, now looking back, this is not something I was aware of at the time, and there was no way I could have really placed it where it needed to be properly in my head for how is this going to be helpful for me? But sometimes, in fact, for me, a lot of times, almost all the time, it took me, probably a good 20 minutes, maybe half an hour for me to really get my circulation engaged. And
Yeah.
the cleaner your fluids are inside of your body, the less time it takes for you to move that. And so what you were talking about before, Robert, this is so important. You're talking about when you had that shift, you had the out of body experience, you had this like high vibration in your body. That's what's going on, because what's happening, and there's actually there's a relief, like a stone relief at Angkor Wat. It's called the Churning of the Cosmic Milk Ocean. And you can pull that. I'm sure most people have seen it, but the angels and the demons are in a fight, and they're both pulling either side of a serpent. One of them's got the tail, one of them's got the head, and they're essentially churning. So you think about like a butter churn. That's where most people know about a churn from, is that you have to agitate the fluid. So you've got the handle, and you're going like this, and you're trying to get the fluid to move, and then it will eventually form butter, and it'll separate fluids and stuff like that. And the thing about it is that that's the entire key to understanding how to get your circulatory system to work. You have to get the fluid agitated internally in a safe way. I'll tell you something interesting. And the thing is that it will take most people a fair amount of time to actually get that to happen. Because think about like a ketchup bottle. Like that's not coming out. The traditional ones, it's not coming out. The glass bottles I'm talking about, unless you got to agitate it. When you agitate it, it will turn somewhat liquid. You have to shake it for a little while. So running is one of the ways to shake it. Another way, of course, is sexual activity. That probably takes even less time for most people, but sometimes it'll take 20, 30 minutes. People talk about that all the time. Before they feel the circulation moving and everything. There's also stretching is really good. Of course, yoga. And one of the things that I find, I think I'm going to start talking about it more. I found that it really helps just to very delicately engage your muscles. So like, just even right now, the past 5 minutes, I've been kind of just doing like a leg extension on my chair here. And so you just sit there and you engage, you kind of stretch your leg out until it's straight. And then you're going to feel like your entire thigh kind of tense, and you'll feel like kind of blood moving in, and just kind of squeeze it, push it until you feel something happening in your leg, and then release it, and do that maybe like 20 times with each leg or something. And what that's doing, I think that's even better than stuff like running, because it's very low impact. It's very effective in my opinion, and I've seen massive results from this. It's so it's not going to hurt my joints and stuff like that. You can do it in your chair. You could do it at work, man. You can do it, if you're sitting at work in a cubicle or something, you can do it at work. I'll kind of just get up and do the same thing with my forearms. You kind of tense the forearm. It's like you're pressing the muscle, you're pressing the fluid in and out of it. And it's moving all the fluids are integrated in your fluid system, so they will move through the body. Sometimes together, and then sometimes they separate, they come back together. So you want to squeeze the muscle enough so that you feel circulation, and then you want to release it, and then you want to squeeze it again, then release it. And it's something that I feel most people can do fairly safely. I would say for most people, it's going to be a fairly or even very safe activity. I do it like maybe 20, 30 minutes a day, and I'm good, man. With that combined with fasting and moving your fluids, that's all you need, in my opinion.
What if you have a labor-intensive job? Like, can that count as something? Like, because I have a really labor-intensive job. Like, I'm always moving. I'm always carrying something. I'm always like I'm always moving around. Like, I'm always standing on my feet. Like, does that get the circulation moving too, or no?
Yeah, it does. But what I've found and actually I found it probably, it was probably 10 years ago, man. It's not that I wasn't paying attention, but like I had no one to teach me this stuff, man. Everything I talk about is firsthand experience. I don't talk about stuff if I don't know it, man. If I'm not comfortable with it. And if I do, or if someone asks me my opinion, I'll say this is my opinion, but I haven't really experienced it. I want to make people to understand the difference between firsthand experience and trying to just weigh an opinion on something. But what I found, it will to a certain extent. But for instance, like if I go on a walk I mean, I can do a 5 mile walk, no problem. And I'm not even remotely tired at the end. It's, it's actually not, it's really never going to be a bad thing unless you've got some kind of ailment where you can't move freely or a heart condition. I mean, I don't know, people have all kinds of different stuff, but the idea is that at the end of that walk, I feel pretty good, man, but it's not the same as compressing your muscles deliberately. You really want to, it's like about with bread, when you're making bread, you want to like knead the dough. You got to like agitate the muscle, and you want to focus the agitation at one spot at a time. So when I'm going on a walk, it's not like, I'm getting a really good workout in the very top portion of the thigh muscle. Like it's kind of a general, you're getting things moving, but I find you want to direct it straight to that spot. So I mean, even doing like hand exercises and stuff, like you want to squeeze the muscle, and you're going to feel the muscle engage. When you feel it engage, hold it for a second and let go of it, and then do it until I walk around outside and I do it until I'm like, I've had enough. And when I feel all my muscles are loose and I feel good blood flow, then I'm good for the day. But at the same time, I'm not eating hamburgers every day. I'm not eating huge amounts of meat and stuff like this, and butter and cheese. You really want it to be, you want to hit it from both ends. And when you hit it from both ends, man, it moves fairly quickly, to be quite honest.
So it's like fasting. So maybe do like a 24-hour fast combined with like physical exercise.
Yeah, and like I was saying, I would encourage people to do to directly focus on like one muscle group at a time. Do a kind of compress the muscle, and then you'll feel the fluids move in, and then you want to release it and do like a small set, do 10 or 15 or something like that. And then when it's like, for me, it's essentially no impact. And what's amazing is that if you're consistent about it, as time goes on and you actually put more muscle on, you'd be very surprised. You might probably wouldn't be, since you're a runner, but how much muscle you can put on by just, and I'm not using weights, I'm using my own body resistance. I don't really like using weights. You can use anything out in the natural world. I don't even really use that. I just use the muscle.
What I used to do was push-ups and pull-ups. That was like, and I got like in good shape doing that. Like, but the only thing I would use was bicep curls, but I mostly would do push-ups and pull-ups and crunches, and like, I used to be in really good shape. But I don't know, I kind of got away from it, because what I was doing back then when I was like really ripped, I have pictures too. This was like 2018. I got really ripped, and then I was like, I don't know, I was eating like high protein, low carbs, but a lot of the stuff I was putting in my body, even though I was ripped, was really not good for you, because I wasn't getting like good sources of protein. You know what I mean? Like I would eat a lot of yogurts, which isn't bad, I guess, but like those like low carb yogurts and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like I want to learn how to do things the right way. I want to be as healthy as possible, especially as I'm getting up in age. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know I'm no spring chicken anymore, so I want to do things the right way,
Well, I've been absolutely amazed that even if you've done it for 5 or 6 days, what I'm talking about, gently compressing your muscles, it gets the blood in, it gets the lymph in, it gets all the fluids in. And then when you release it, some of the toxins will come out. And it's doing like two things at the same time, man. And when you just target each muscle group, and like I was saying, you can do it in your chair, man. I mean, you can, kind of stretch your shoulders, stretch your arm, get some shoulder raises, stuff like that. And you have to feel it. You have to feel the muscle engage. So just because you made the movement, it doesn't mean you engage the muscle. You want to get the deep muscle tissue engaged in that movement. So you want to kind of compress it and then release it.
What are your thoughts on vitamins and MCT oil? Like, would you use coconut oil? I seem to like coconut oil for a lot of different stuff. Like, I use it for my skin. I take some of it. It helps clean you out. Like, if you need to go to the bathroom. I mean, I know that's a little hilarious, but like, no, it does do that, and it's good for your skin. It's good for everything. Like, I've heard, but then I've heard other people say it's a bad fat. I don't know. What do you think about it?
The thing about, from as far as I'm concerned, the thing about coconut oil, now when I take, it's a very, very beautiful thing, man. As you know, like, you leave it on your table, and if you don't heat your house in the winter, it'll turn solid. And then suddenly it's like fully liquid. It's like, wow, that is amazing. Even just like chemically, that's an amazing tool right there. It's not a lot of things that will do that. So, when I'm talking solid, you know how solid that oil gets if it's cold. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I uncap coconut oil, it smells to me like it's like fungus. It smells like it's kind of almost rotting in a way. And so just from the smell of it, for me, I'm like, no, it doesn't feel like it's going to improve the energy field. Now, it is a fat, but it's very highly saturated. Like it's ridiculous how much saturated fat is in coconut oil and coconut meat and everything. So, again, when I was talking about being careful with the amount of meat and butter and cheese and stuff like that, because that stuff is really heavy, it's very saturated. And when you're talking about saturated and you're talking about trying to establish a good fluid system in your body, those don't work together. You need them to be, you need it to be free flowing. So if you do use it, you want to be very, and I'm talking real sparing with that, really, really sparing. I have not found it to help me. I have never used coconut oil. If I'm going to use a plant oil, I will use extra virgin olive oil, and I will use it from somewhere that's very hot. And I like to get it from Europe, actually. I figure they've been doing it longer than we have over here. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Most people would say it's probably true. So I'm like, yeah, I'll get mine from Spain rather than Texas, and we'll go with that one. The Mediterranean olive oil. What's that?
Did you say it's an extra virgin olive oil you use instead of coconut oil? Is that what that sounds good.
If I'm going to use it, it's very low in saturated fat. The Ayurvedic texts, again, the Sushruta Samhita, I highly encourage everyone to read the introduction. You don't have to read the rest of it. The introduction's maybe, I don't remember, 40 pages or something like that. It's not very long, but it's the finest intact text I've ever found about what I consider to be actual true medicine. So the thing about that text is that it actually details 2 different plant oils that are the finest oils. Ayurvedic is all about oils and fasting and salts and all this stuff, circulating fluids. You have to find your oil because you need to have lubrication in your organs and in your ligaments and in the muscles. And you don't have lubrication in the body, nothing's going to work. The bones, all the stuff. You got to find your oil. So what they say, I'm almost positive sesame oil is first, according to Ayurveda, and then mustard oil is second. I have not tried mustard oil. I've tried sesame oil. I find it to be a very strong flavor. I really can't engage in the sesame oil very often, but the olive oil is probably next best, I would say, for sure, if you're talking plant oils. But there's a lot in that text about animal oils, which are also usually called animal fats. And it does talk about healing from beef fat and healing from, I don't remember if it talked about chicken fat. Poultry, maybe it probably said poultry at some point. Chicken fat is fairly delicate. But, in my opinion, you really want to get either probably milk or eggs. You don't have to kill things for that, and you're still getting the animal fat if you want to work with that. One of the things about animal fat that's, I think, better than plant fat is that it has a lot of extra power. You've got all the B vitamins and you've got all the proteins and stuff like that are different. Well, it's, full protein profile, obviously, in animal products, and the plants don't have it except for, I guess, some people claim quinoa. Maybe there might be another one in there somewhere. But I've just found, again, you gotta try it out and see how you feel. It's like, because all of our bodies are different, and I think all of our genetics are different. So you have to see how it acts in your own body. But certainly with plant oils, when you're working with that, I'd personally extra virgin olive oil, and then according to Ayurvedic, it's sesame and mustard oils as well. And then if you're going the animal route, I would highly recommend staying away from beef fat and pork fat. Actually, they're both very dense. Chicken fat is really good in very small quantities. And actually, it's interesting, man, because when I was a kid and there was chicken soup in the house, homemade chicken soup, I always felt really relaxed after that. I'm like, why do I feel so good right now? Of course, never made the connection. No one ever talked about it because no one understands. Certainly no one in my family understood it. I question whether or not doctors understand it. I actually don't think they do. I think in India and China, they may, the good ones. I'm sure the good ones do. But over in North America, man, they're not reading Ayurvedic texts. There's no way, man. They're all they're trying to do is plug the prescription medications, which are based in petrochemicals, which is highly toxic to the body. You don't put that shit in your body, man. No way. Go if you're gonna do it, go into like go in your forest, but get your herbs, get your natural stuff. If it was me, I would try, if I'm gonna do herbs and stuff, I'd recommend probably growing your own herbs. Don't take a capsule. There's stuff in capsules too. They add things that don't need to be in there. Just find the herb and eat it. And one of the things that the two most miraculous herbs to me are basil. And basil is very sacred in India. It goes by a different name, but extremely sacred plant. And cilantro. Every time I get around those, man, I don't even have to ingest it. I want to be around them. Like, I want to be around their energy. That's how good it is to me. Rosemary, I find to be very good as well. Very positive energy. So
people keep talking about frankincense. A lot of people that are coming on my podcast are saying frankincense is really good too.
Well, I grew up Catholic, unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if you went through that, possibly because you're in Pennsylvania. But the thing about it is that there's frankincense and myrrh, obviously, that are distributed in the fragrance in the church. And they're in, I think they're called canters, if I'm not mistaken. There are these things on long metal chains, not long metal chains, but metal chains. And there's at the bottom of it, there's a little capsule that you put the burning, frankincense or myrrh, whatever you're doing. And it does change your consciousness. There's no question in that. And every time I went in that church, it actually, it kind of lulls your consciousness. It kind of relaxes you, maybe wakens up some of your cells and stuff like that. However, I'm also going to say this, is that I personally believe they've been using that, not all the time, man. I almost never put everything in one basket, because that's just not how the world works. People want to put things in these small boxes and whatever. But if you want to influence people in a spiritual way, use some kind of, scent or some kind of food or some kind of whatever. I mean, for the longest time, and a lot of places I'm sure still do it, but there's wine in the church that is supposed to have turned into Jesus's blood. And through, it's essentially alchemy. They're not going to call it that, but that's what it really is. And the thing about it is that if you have used certain substances, whether they're being inhaled or taken by mouth, eaten, it will influence your consciousness, and they're well aware of this. So if you're in certain states because you've eaten something or you have smelled something in the air that it changes your consciousness, it's actually easier to influence action. It's believe me, they know that, and people know what they're doing, at least way back in the top rungs, whoever's controlling this stuff. So it's one of those things where you just have to be careful too. But again, you know what, as long as you feel like it's going to be safe for you and you've read the counterindications, if there's any of those things going on, definitely light some and make sure you don't get a fire in your house, man, but light some and see how you feel. How you feel, not how other people feel.
I'm sorry. I use a diffuser, which is like really safe. It's like, like a diffuser. I can show you mine. It's like, it's my ex gave me this. This is a diffuser. And then like in here, you put your essential oils, and you put a little bit of water and your essential oils. Like right now I have, I'll show you guys. I have cedar wood, which I don't know if you can see that. I have cedar wood. And then I have, this one's like a warming oil. And then I have another one, which is lemongrass. Okay. I don't have any really good ones right now, but then I've been using some of Indigo Angel's starseed oils, which are like these starseed oils. Like this one's mixed with lapis lazuli and turquoise. And basically I put these in the diffuser and it creates like it creates a scent, but it also creates like a, what am I trying to say? Steam. It's like steam. It comes out and you can breathe better and it smells good. And I think it affects your consciousness. Like, I don't really know exactly what the essential oils do. I mean, I'm not like real, I know they're good for you. That's why I use it and they're relaxing too, but I'm not like an ace when I, about these things, but I know I like to use the diffuser and it's safer instead of like lighting a candle or burning incense or something like that. Because the diffuser, sometimes it just turns itself off. I don't even have to turn it off. You know what I mean? I don't know. Have you ever messed with essential oils?
Yeah, I know a fair amount about them. And the ones that I like, of course, the most would be lavender, and also I found lemon verbena, chamomile. It has to work with your particular energy field. So it's
I
one of
love
those
lavender.
things. Oh, it's amazing, man. But I've also found, if it's in too high concentrations or if I do it too much, it actually is not good for me. So,
Yeah.
Hippocrates, who's is said to be basically the father of modern medicine, said that the dose makes the poison. So you want to be careful with everything, even things that people say, oh yeah, salad, that's always healthy. Well, I mean, if you have too much of it, you're going to become too alkaline. You're going to not have enough power, and the power comes from the acid, from animal products and stuff like that generally. And you need to keep the balance. So I would say just to everyone not to overdo really anything, and you want to be make sure you know what you're getting into before you do it. Also, watch your pets too if you're doing diffusers and stuff, because that can be very toxic for them if they get into that. That's one of the things they always.
I don't have any pets right now, but that's good to know. Like, I didn't know that. Also, I wanted to say, didn't Hippocrates say, "Let thy food be thy medicine"?
I think he said that. Yep.
Yeah,
It sounds like
it was on a drink I saw before. That's what, and it made me. It always stuck with me. I saw that because I used to work in a store, and I would see like that it was on like a health drink. It said Hippocrates, "Let the food be thy medicine." And I was like, that's pretty. That makes sense, right? Because like it's like you don't need all these external medicines. Like your food can be your medicine. Like just do it the right way, right? Like you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the one of the things I'd like to get across to people, especially too, is that one of the general messages, man, is just take it easy on the food, period. Period. Even if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you need to let your body just relax. Nothing. Don't put anything in the mouth, man, in terms of food. Okay. So you need to let it relax. The best way I describe this is that when you have if you eat a lot of food, whether it's vegetarian or vegan or whatever, organic, whatever it is, and for this illustration, it's not important. The point is that if you're putting large quantities of food in your stomach, you have to have a lot of energy to burn that. And so when your stomach is constantly full, guess where most of your free energy is going? To digestion. So when your stomach is not full, where's your free energy going? To healing. That's the general principle that we have to start to get into our minds. Keep that in the back of the head. You have the free energy, but you don't always want to be forcing it onto the stomach. And in fact, the way the chakra system works, the way I teach healing, I mentioned it before a little bit, but it's a bottom-up process. You got to heal the intestines first, then, intestines and bladder and the sexual region, the sexual fluid. And then as you're moving up, it's going to get to the stomach next and your liver, where all the toxins are processed in the liver and everything. And then it's going to go into your lungs and heart, and it continues to go up. So, I guarantee you, you haven't fully healed your intestines or your abdomen until it's been a long time for myself too, man. But I know what the signs are. There's some very specific signs. It's unmistakable. You need the stomach to shrink naturally. I'm not talking about a surgery, where people go through that to shrink the stomach. No, this is a natural occurrence. So you're going to feel, and again, you need to watch your body and energy levels. You got to be careful with your fluids and everything. But the general idea is that what happens when you have fully healed the intestine region and the lower abdomen region is that you start to feel your stomach grumbling, and that you don't hit the food at that point. You let it do it. You let it continue to do that. It's actually trying to heal. So what happens is it will start to tuck into the body. It starts tucking in towards the spine and in and up. So it goes your lower abdomen where around the navel, it will tuck in, and then it tucks underneath the ribs. And if you've ever seen people who are truly in ridiculously phenomenal shape, I'll speak for men, for instance, because of course that's my particular experience in this lifetime. You see like this stair step pattern to the male torso, where you got like a wasp waist. I love to see that in men, because most guys have either like a flat abdomen and it's flat on the sides. Now you really want to see it tucked and tucked in on the sides as well, and then tucked under the rib cage. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger has some pictures like that when he was in his top shape. And then what happens is it's tucked in, and like I'm mentioning, it's tucked in towards the spine, past the ribs. So then the stair step is the next step up is your rib cage, and then the next step up in the rib cage is the chest muscles. So it's literally like a stair step pattern going down, and you want the waist to be like a wasp. And once you got that, man, you can pretty much literally eat whatever you want until you lose that tuck, until you lose the strength in the lower abdomen. And I've seen it myself, man. I've been like, basically like, holy shit, how am I able to eat this amount of stuff? And like, I sleep solid through the night, and then I wake up and I'm ready to go, and I'm happy, and I'm greeting people and saying, hey, how's it going, man? What are you up to today? And just, I never get tired. I could have a whole pizza. I could have a whole case of beer, whatever I want, man. Whole thing of Oreos, there's no effects. But that's only when you establish the healing. You have to get things healed first. And then for me, it's a lifestyle. I know some people would probably be like, oh yeah, I'll just give it a shot and I'm going to go back to my old habits. And the idea and the ideal for me is that you don't go back to the bad habits. You keep the good habits. And in fact, the stronger and healthier you get, I swear, man, you don't even think about food anymore. I'm not making that up. It's amazing what happens. Like when I'm really healthy and I've moved my fluids properly, I'll get to like 7, 8 p.m. I still haven't eaten anything. I'm like, no, I'm good. And you just lay down, and then it's a exponential healing. So the more that you're able to do that effectively, the more power you get. And then it gets easier, and it doesn't get harder, guys, if you're doing it right. No way. If you're doing it right, it gets very, very easy, shockingly easy. So,
I got to go. I got to do another show, but is there anything we wanted to finish up, or whatever you want to talk about?
Well, just tell me, tell me just really quickly. We got about 3 minutes left. Just tell me really fast what the most interesting thing that's been said on your show has been from a guest. The one thing that someone said, you're like, whoa.
I mean, there's so much, like, me, I love the Anunnaki talks. I was telling like Chad I did Chad from Open Your Reality show the other day, and they were asking me who my favorite guests were, and I told them that it was like the guests who talked about the Anunnaki, and that was like Jason from Archaics. He has some interesting theories. Matt LaCroix, he has some really interesting theories, and Paul Wallace. Now, Matt and Paul Wallace have similar theories that they think that this is like some external species that came from. We don't know. They don't think it's Nibiru. I think Sitchin was wrong on that. I'm not sure where they came from. But Jason from Archaics thinks they came from underground. Me, I don't know. Like, I kind of like to be like Art Bell and just kind of like present the evidence and let whatever resonates with the audience, let that resonate, And then, but I mean, like the other day, for example, something really interesting is I had Raynetta Jones on my show, and she was talking about this inner Earth civilization called El Dorado. It's underneath Trinidad, in Trinidad and Tobago, like, or in like the Haitian Dominican Republic area. And I just thought that was fascinating because I had never heard that before. I heard of inner Earth. I heard of like Admiral Byrd going inner Earth, and I heard of Agartha and all that stuff. But I thought that was a fascinating interview. So if people want to check that out, they can. I'm trying to think of some other stuff. I love inner Earth. I'd love to go to. I wanted to ask someone this, like, and I'll ask you. Like, I remember the Art Bell show. It was hilarious. I don't know if you remember this. It was called Into the Hollow Earth with Dallas Thompson. It was 2002. And he was this kid. He was a little bit crazy, but like he was. So it was a funny episode of Art Bell, but he had a mini helicopter type vehicle. It was called a solo trek, and he was going to go to the North Pole and supposedly fly into the Hollow Earth. I thought it was hilarious. I don't think he ever did it. And like, he had a website called Cosmic Manuscript. It kind of fell off to the wayside. Like, so I don't know if he ever went, or, obviously I don't think he did because it wasn't documented. But what I always say to people is, like, if you had a chance to enter the Hollow Earth, would you do it if you knew you might not come back? Like, but if you knew there was a civilization there and there was like maybe greater beginning or new beginnings, like, like, or maybe we don't know what it would be, but what do you think you would do?
Well, I think if I trusted the beings, I'm not going myself. I need some kind of guidance, some kind of
Yeah.
indication of what I'm going to expect. But it's interesting, man. I've actually been doing a lot with that topic too. Called the City of Gold, obviously El Dorado. Some people claimed it was not a city, but actually a person. I believe one of the Incan kings, they called him El Dorado. But it's interesting because it's a lot of it's around the same kind of area. There's even places. There's one place in Arkansas called El Dorado. It all seems to be kind of around the Gulf of Mexico, which I find highly interesting.
Yeah.
So, also the idea of the New Jerusalem is said to be either a golden or a crystal city that will descend from the sky. But there's all kinds of these references to this, and I'm not sure how many of them are the same, and I'm still working with the ideas, but I think it really helps to talk about it. And I just want to say really quickly to address what I think about the Anunnaki in terms of being underground. From what I've read and from what I feel, also, some of it has to, I get into a meditative state and I just see what I can see. Sometimes I get a picture, sometimes I get a phrase, sometimes I get drawn to an article. And what I think happened is that they came here and there was they did all kinds of civilization development for a long time. And then there was a cataclysm. I think they went underground at the cataclysm. And then they were forced underground because they would have died if they stayed on the surface. And then I think when people saw them reemerging from underground, they said, "Oh, yeah, they're from." And I think they changed too. I think they physically probably were altered from staying underground for so long, and then they came out, and it was almost like a different species. I think that's probably what happened. Sense. Yeah, I don't think they don't strike me as underground beings. I think that was because of a cataclysm. And of course, the Native Americans in the Southwest talk about they emerged from underground into the fourth world and all this stuff. They were taken down there by insect people or ant people, they call them. They helped us. They saved us. They brought us under. Okay, well, that sounds like ETs to me a little bit. In fact, a lot. So anyway, and then the other thing I want to say really fast, I know you got to go, is the fact that at least in Zecharia Sitchin's book, and I read the Lost Book of Enki recently. I listened to it on audiobook actually. Oh, it's one of the best things one of the best things I've ever read and listened to. And the thing that struck me the most was that according to Zecharia, well, and again, he's saying it's according to the tablets, of course. He's not just like making it up, at least. I think he's basing it on something legitimate. Now, if it's all true or not, I think we need to make our own opinions about that. But he did say that when they got here, they were trying to, and I said this on the show when I was on your show, actually, Robert. They said that they were trying to, or he said rather, they were trying to understand how the orbits of the planets worked. And so now I'm thinking about, well, if you're out in the say that I believe Nibiru potentially is out in like the 10th sphere, I'm talking about cosmology, way out at the edge of the solar system, planet X, whatever you want to call this stuff. I think that if they came here and they didn't understand how the solar system worked, that leads me, first of all, it doesn't indicate to me they were the creators of the solar system. That's number one. Because if you created it, then you would know how it works, believe me. And then the second part is that when they came here, man, from what I remember, the first thing they did was that they had like special like fish suits. We know this, and even behind you, I'm not sure if I think he's got the hat on at least. But they had fish suits because they couldn't exist in the water without protecting themselves. It's almost like a scuba gear or something they were wearing. And then when they went to the moon, they wore eagle suits, which is what you have behind you with the wings and everything. So they weren't used to being here. It's like they were visitors, but I don't believe they were creators, not of here, not of Earth. They were trying to figure it out, man.
I have this image because it's like the Anunnaki guy, and he has the pine. I think that's supposedly the pine cone in his hand, and that's kind of like symbolizes the passing of knowledge. And I like that because I want to think that like I'm giving people knowledge like on my channel, like or on my podcast in general. Like I'm not as advanced as thinking as you. Like you're really, really, really intelligent. I want to do more shows with you. I want to do a show with you and Santos. I wanted to get Santos on my show. When I emailed him, he told me to follow up with him in a couple months. So, like maybe I'll try to get a hold of him. I'd like to do a show with you and him on my channel.
Oh, totally.
If we could do, that would be fun.
Well, and I did a show with Santos last June, actually. And it's phenomenal. Especially when you get people together of a very high caliber, man, you can actually accomplish things. That's what it is for me, is that I love talking about this stuff, Robert, but I'm actually looking for solutions. I want to take action on some of this stuff, either with education or if it's how do we improve the health. get out in the field, do some jumping jacks and stuff. I'll show you how to compress your muscles. I'll show you how to do it safely. I'll show you how to fast. So it's the knowledge in action that actually accomplishes things. And also, I'm happy to join you whenever. So if you've got a guest and you want my perspective at the same time, let me know, man, and I'll give you my viewpoint on it. I think the more people we have together in the same room at the same time, the better off we are.
That would be fun. That would definitely be fun for sure.
Yep. Anytime, man. Okay, if you want to let people know where to find you, Robert, best places to find your podcast.
You just look up Typical Skeptic Podcast on YouTube. On YouTube, it's Typical Skeptic Podcast, UFO, Paranormal, and Sci. But then everywhere else on the internet, it's just Typical Skeptic Podcast. And then if you want, I have merch. You can buy a shirt, or you can subscribe to my Patreon. I have a Patreon like Dave does. And guys, like what you may not understand is like we're doing the Patreon because like it helps us. We can do things on Patreon that we can't do on YouTube. I mean, and also it gives us a little bit of income so we can continue doing shows. So it's very important that you sign up for Dave's Patreon or my Patreon. And also I'm on Rockfin and Rumble and all that jazz. But I appreciate you even invite me, Dave. I love talking to you. You're awesome. I love your knowledge. Like you're just a fascinating person, man. Honestly.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. And I of course, echo what Robert just said about Patreon and support. Unfortunately, we live in a money that charges people to do things. And that's what I've brought up to some of my friends recently. So, it's one of these things where, at least for me too, in order to continue to do shows, I need the financial support. There's no other way to say it.
Me too.
Because exactly, man. Because the fact of the matter is that it takes quite a lot of work. You guys don't see what happens behind the scenes to put these kinds of things on, even posting the shows and advertising and getting guests and scheduling and all this stuff. And the other part of it for me is that if I'm doing this, if I'm putting out, a couple podcasts a week, then I don't have time for a typical full-time job. So if I'm doing, and by the way, if I'm working an 8-hour day and I get home, I'm laying down. If I'm doing that 5 days a week, I'm not going to be doing shows. So if you guys value this, please help us out. Robert's awesome. Got like stellar guests on your show consistently all of the time. And I also think moving into the new world, we need to fund people we really believe in. You believe in highly. They're putting out good information. I'm never going to put a paywall behind something, but I'm just asking you guys, please support my Patreon, support Robert. And that we commit to bring you really good stuff. I'm in it for my life, man. I'm never going to stop doing this if I have the support. So we appreciate it, guys. We really do. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dave. And I'll get a hold of you. You can get a hold of me. We'll do something again soon.
Yeah, sounds good, Robert. Anytime, man.
All right. Thanks. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you, guys. All listeners, appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.